First of all, the disease model is not backed up by science, period. End of sentence. I was stunted as fuck in the program. I feel like I did not get anything out of it. I was going to these IOPs stone cold sober, and I was like, I want to fucking kill myself. I need help. And they were like, sounds like you need to go to a meeting. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? I felt like I was ambushed. I felt so betrayed. It's fucking religious. Stop lying to people's faces like, oh, it's spiritual, not religious. Like, no, it's fucking religious. It's a fucking cult religion. It's really crazy to be out of it for a while now, take a step back and see it for what it is.
Hello and welcome to the Sobriety Bestie podcast. I am super excited you are here today for another great episode. Today we have Sam, who goes by Ebby Thatcher on Instagram. Hello, Sam. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm super nervous, but I'm excited to do this.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, glad to have you here. And when I first saw you on Instagram, I was like, Ebby Thatcher's following me? What in the world?
The ghost of
like,
Ebby Thatcher.
I was like, is this an AA lover or is this a deprogrammer? And I didn't know at first, but then I noticed it was like Ebby Thatcher 1896. And is that what it is? I just asked ChatGPT, when was Ebby Thatcher born? And wouldn't you know it, 1896.
Yep. Yeah, I was torn between doing 1896 or the year he died, and yeah, I could go on and on about Ebby Thatcher. I think his story is really interesting, but
I love it.
yeah.
Yeah, well, usually people would put their birth date on their Instagram because they don't know their death year, right? So I think
Right.
that was a good call.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I'll link the Ebby Thatcher Instagram account below if you guys want to follow along. And Sam, I would love to know about how long you were in AA and when did you leave?
I was in a total of about 7 years. I left my very last meeting was July of last year, July of 2024. So I've been out for a little over a year. It's been a whole process. It's been a whole journey. It's been like phases that I've already been through. Like I kind of started moving away from AA April of last year. And then the last meeting I ever went to, which I only stayed for half the meeting, the last meeting I ever went to was in July. And then, like, in November, December, so right about a year ago, I started reading about cults. And it was just like this huge mind fuck. Like, all of it, I was just like, oh my God. And that was the final nail in the coffin where I was like, yeah, I'm not going back to that. Like, nothing, there's no reason to do that to myself anymore. Yeah.
Totally. When people tell me, we still love you, we're saving you a seat, I'm like, bro, you couldn't pay me to get in that seat. Like,
Give the seat to somebody else.
there's I'm glad you're there. I'm glad you exist. Like, I don't need you to go away, but I'm not coming.
Yeah, exactly.
You said it was phases, the leaving AA process, and I certainly relate to that. I think that is super relatable. Like, I had a big deprogramming season the first year I left, and then 5 years later when I started dissenting, it's just, there's been so much more that I didn't even know about. So could you share a little bit about what these seasons have been like?
Yeah, for a little bit of context and background, like I was dragged into AA kicking and screaming. Like, I didn't like it, I didn't want to do it, and I was every fucking turn met with condescending, like, keep coming back, or what do you know about AA, contempt prior to and all the fucking slogans. And so I really, really struggled to stay sober. And I finally, the brainwashing took effect and I stuck around. And then the thing that I was like, okay, I need a break from meetings. I just need take a step back and like figure out where my priorities are. And the thing that kind of initiated that was a friend in the program was sexually assaulted at an AA event. And the friend went to the people in the community who like were part of the organizers of these kinds of events, and they were like, hey, this happened. I don't really want to like fuck the person over who did this to me, but I just want people to know that this happened so it doesn't happen to anybody else. And the community was like, doubled down and was like, find your part. The classic like victim blaming kind of. Yeah, so like their story is separate from my story, but I wanted to them to know that I wanted to show them solidarity, that I was like, this is really fucking messed up. And so I took a break from meetings around April of last year, and a bunch of other like 13th step esque things were going on with people that I was friends with in the program. And it even came to a point where like somebody that I was really good friends with, who I actually like introduced to AA and got them into the program, was like doing some fuck shit, and I kind of called them out on it, and they were like, well, that's not this and this and that. And after a certain point, I was like, I can't, I need a break from this friendship. And so that was kind of the last person that I was like really having regular contact with who was in the program. That was probably in the summer of last year. The last meeting I ever went to was a speaker meeting, and it was an old white guy on the podium. Same story you've heard a million times. Same story I have heard a million times. And I left halfway through the meeting, and I was like, my friend sitting next to me in the meeting was literally just reading her big book on her phone. She was like, I fucking hate this shit. And I was like, I'm just gonna leave. Like, I see no value in this anymore. And that meeting in July was the first meeting I'd been to since April. And I'm trying to think of what the thing that turned me in the direction of reading about cults was. I can't think of what that was, but as I started reading about cults, I was reading like research articles about people's experiences, and I was like, that sounds way too familiar. It just kind of like hit me like a train, where I was like, that's a fucking cult. That's kind of where I'm still at, which is crazy that that's like a year ago now. But recently I've been listening to a little bit culty podcast, and all of it, it's just like it's hitting way too close to home.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm kind of in this phase where like I want to learn more about cults and like all the dynamics, and it's helping me contextualize my experience, but also have a broader understanding of that in general, if that makes sense. So that's kind of the season I'm in right now. Shortly before this, it was like anger and grief at the same time. Just like a lot of rage and a lot of sadness. And I was listening to your episodes on like the stages of grief, and I did a little bit of that journaling, and I was like, you know, so
Mm-hmm.
it's a whole process, and I'm trying to not make it like bigger than it needs to be. I'm not trying to make a mountain out of a molehill, but it feels really really big to me. It feels like this entire shift of like everything that I understood about the world, and I feel the need to minimize it because I don't have anybody in my personal circle who has been through this, because I'm not friends with anybody in AA anymore. And any of my friends who have left, like that friend who was sexually assaulted, we've gone our separate ways. And the internet, for all its pros and cons, has been a great resource for me connecting with other people who have the same experience. Your Deprogram Lounge is great. There's a million podcasts. I've been listening to a bunch of audiobooks. So that's really helped me kind of stay grounded with my journey. Yeah. Long-winded answer.
Yeah, I mean, that is just so relatable.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, one of the hardest parts about all of the mind fuckery of it is that the lack of validation by society, I mean, are you reading Cults in Our Midst right
I
now for
haven't
the
started
Deprogram
reading
book club?
it. I'm reading The Sober Truth right now.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So even in Cults in Our Midst, she is saying AA is explicitly saying, here's the reasons why AA is not a cult. And I'm like, but each of your reasons are actually not true. And
Yep.
those are actually, when you flip them and look at the truth, those are reasons that it is a cult.
Yep.
And also on a little bit culty, I don't know what it's like now, but when I was listening to it, when I was first leaving, they were explicitly saying AA is not a cult, or being apologetic about it, saying, we have a lot of friends in AA, so we're not making a bad thing about it. This is not to fault anybody. It's to point out how hidden from society the harm still is. And when we leave, we are isolated, we're shunned, and we're sitting there, right, with all of these feelings, and it's not mirrored back to us. And it's like, what do I do with all this?
Yeah. And a couple things you said made me think of a couple things. I have started at the beginning of a little bit culty, which it started in 2020, I think, like right around shutdown. And I this morning I was listening to the episode with what's her name, Leah Remini, the
Yeah.
Scientology dissenter. And Scientology, it's like you ask anybody in the country and they're like, yeah, that's a cult. But it's like, I had no idea what happened inside there. And it's horrifying. And I had to pause the podcast, turn on some music, step outside. I was like, whoo, that's dark. That's really dark. And another thing you said, the mirroring thing. I've been really working with my therapist on this, basically complex trauma from AA.
Mm.
And we started talking about it a lot, maybe like a month ago. And I was telling her about the big book. And she was like, it was written in what year? 1939? And I'm like, yep, yep. And the more we talk about it, my therapist is really she's amazing. She's really open about things. And like a typical kind of therapist, like the expectation is they kind of keep a straight face and don't really like show a reaction. And she's very explicitly said to me like, I'm not going to hide my reactions because I frankly don't know how to. And that has been so helpful for me when I'm telling her about anything in AA.
Mm.
And she's just like, I'm like, that's really helpful to see that, like, literally mirrored back to me. Like, I need that validation because nobody else in my personal circle has, like, knows how to do that. Any of my friends now were normies, were never in AA, in any variation of substance use. And so working with my therapist has been super helpful. And yeah,
Yeah. I
yeah,
mean, it's easy to look at when we look at Scientology or when we look at Keith Raniere, right, Nexium, or we look at Jonestown, right, in the Kool-Aid, when we look at notorious or well-known like cults, and it's easy for us all to get on board with an ex-member, but when it comes to AA, it's like, maybe you shouldn't say that, or you should be grateful for what you got, or but it's like this gaslighting from
yes.
society and from everywhere. I'm so glad you have a therapist who gets it.
Yeah. And honestly, the best part of my therapist is she doesn't even really specialize in addiction. So she has no reference point. She doesn't know anything about AA. And that's, again, it helps out because if you don't have any reference point, you've never heard one way or the other, like it's super, super good, it's super, super bad. And it's just blank slate. And I'm like, this is the information about it. And she's like, what the fuck? Yeah.
Like, wait, you were conned into free laboring for the rest of your life at at the threat of your life, otherwise you'll die?
Yep.
And
What
somehow
is
that
that?
like make it make sense. You're
Yeah.
like, but I have a spiritual malady. Uh-huh. It's a fatal progressive disease. Says who in modern science?
A lot of people are still on the disease model train. It's crazy. And if you take more than just a surface level Google search, you will find infinite resources that are like, first of all, the disease model is not backed up by science, period. End of sentence.
Yep.
But even then, it's people still push AA because I think my experience is that before I went to AA, doctors, nurses, healthcare practitioners were telling me to go to AA because they have no experience with addiction of their own. They just hear what everybody else is saying about it and they're like, "Well, just go there." I've heard a lot of people say like society doesn't know what to do with us who have addiction issues, substance use issues, and so they're like, just go over there. And I don't want you to be my problem anymore. Just go there and they'll help you. Or there's people like therapists and social workers who are in AA and excuse me, they're just coming at it from the indoctrinated mindset, where they haven't done any work on themselves to see that it's harmful to people, even them, arguably.
Totally. To me, that's the most dangerous when the help is actually indoctrinated.
Hmm. At the beginning of this year, I went to an IOP, intensive outpatient program, which is like group therapy, 3, 4, 5 days a week or whatever. I went there because I was like pretty hardcore suicidal, which is something I've struggled with for most of my life. It was a sister program to a different IOP that I had been in earlier, like a year before that, when I was suicidal. And for reference, I haven't drank in over 3 years. I was going to these IOPs stone cold sober, and I was like, I want to fucking kill myself. I need help. And they were like, sounds like you need to go to a meeting. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? And so this most recent IOP I went to earlier this year, I was on fully on my exit journey from AA, and I was like, listen, like I don't need help with my addiction issues. Like I quit drinking a long time ago. That's not even a problem for me anymore. I just need some mental health resources. I need some mental health support. The owner slash founder, he was like, yeah, totally, like we're not gonna do the AA thing here. It's a lot of evidence-based research, blah, 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 blah. The therapist, the guy that I did individuals with at that IOP, was like, absolutely, respect that you're not interested in that, blah, blah, blah. And it was about 2 months into the IOP, I started smoking weed again last year, which is neither here nor there, in my opinion, at this point. But they were like, when you're in IOP, they're going to drug test you, and they're like, you got to stop smoking weed, whatever. I was like, okay, fine, not a problem. And then I had a really bad weekend, and I just wanted to zonk out for a little bit, so I smoked some weed. And on Monday, when I went to IOP, I told them, because I knew they were going to see it on my drug test, and I was like, I smoked over the weekend. And then I had an individual with that therapist, and I felt like I was ambushed. He just full on brought out you need to go to a meeting, you need fellowship with other sober people. And I felt so betrayed by this guy. And he and I had really built up a really good rapport, and he had a really good trauma informed mindset of like his healing journey and other people's trauma healing journey. And it just like came out of left field that he was like, you need to go to a meeting. And of course, he was a little bit beaten around the bush with it. He didn't say you need to go to a meeting, but he's like, I highly suggest you go to a meeting. The way in meetings, they're like, the steps are just suggestions.
The hidden control.
Yeah, exactly.
To me, it's like putting whipped cream on a pile of shit. It's like, it's sweet. It's like,
No.
bro, don't dress up.
Yeah.
Don't dress up the cult.
I heard a lot in meetings that they would say the steps are a suggestion, the same way when you're jumping out of an airplane to skydive, it's suggested that you put on a parachute. And I'm like,
100.
even saying that now, I'm like, so it is a death threat that like
It's legit a death threat.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah. And
They're like, there's no gun at your head. I'm like, bro, there is though.
yeah.
It's all the brainwashing. It's you
Mhm.
telling me if I don't do it, I'm going to die every day.
Mhm.
It's the indoctrination. That's the gun at my head. You call it a suggestion, you call it a recovery, but it's all like threats.
Gaslighty, spiritual bypassing, all these things. It's really crazy to like be out of it for a while now and take a step back and like see it for what it is. And it breaks my heart, honestly, that a lot of people I was really good friends with are still doing that, because I'm like, I was stunted as fuck in the program. I feel like I did not get anything out of it. I think it was Carrie, somebody you were doing the podcast with recently, was like, I did a lot of growing up in AA, and I could have done that growing up outside of AA. They taught me, like in sober living, you do the dishes and you clean up after yourself and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I could have learned that by just like having roommates in my 20s. And I was introduced to AA when I was 22. I'm 31 now. So math is hard, but it's like when you're in your early 20s, you're still basically a fucking kid. Like, I don't know about anybody else, but I was not an adult at age 22. To be fair, I'd been an alcoholic for a few years, or, heavy alcohol use for a few years at that point. But it's just like right now, I can't conjure up a thing that I got out of AA that I couldn't have gotten from somewhere else. Like it,
And
yeah.
and I think Bill would have a hard time saying the same thing, right? Because a lot of AA came from somewhere else. A lot of it is just recycled wisdom or straight up
Yeah.
religion. Some of the principles are good, but the principles are universal. They're
Hmm.
not, and they're not about recovery from addiction.
Hmm.
When I think of recovery from addiction, I think something like regulating your nervous system is vital. Alcohol was a self medication for me. So was AA. So I need to learn how to regulate. And that's a recovery from addiction, is learning how to be okay no matter what's happening in the world so that I don't need to use anything. Or your approach, a harm reduction, so that you're not using in a way that's debilitating. You're smoking whenever it feels like you want that enjoyment or that relief or that break. And so even the idea of the purity culture and that abstinence is the way, and if you don't achieve that, your therapist then goes into cult indoctrination. It's brutal and aggressive and harmful in my view.
Yeah, I actually remembered something. The thing that kind of got me realizing like AA is a cult, this is all a setup, was Tara Grace's Burn the Stigma on Facebook. I forgot how eye-opening that was and how much I needed that at that time in my life where she was like, "Yeah, I fucking smoke weed. I don't shoot heroin anymore, and the rehab industry is a bunch of money-hungry fuckballs, you know?" And I actually remember the first time I messaged her on Facebook, and I was just like, I'd been lurking in the comments and the posts and everything, and not really talking about it at all, either there or anywhere. And I messaged her, and I was like, "Is this like it's all bullshit? Like this is all bullshit," which I love. And I was like, "They fucking lied to us." And she was like, "Yeah, they lied to us to keep us sick, to keep them rich." I was like, that was the mind fuck that got me to start thinking about cults and reading about cults and everything. So full circle from what I said earlier.
Yeah, it's a definitely a difficult feeling to be with and process, or it was for me. The bit about, there was a lot of feelings when I left, but the one about feeling conned or played or manipulated, and then either by people who didn't know or people who, even worse, people who did know, right? And I felt like, why is nobody just telling the freaking truth? And it's a lot.
I love Burn the Stigma. That's the work she does. I think it's phenomenal. And again, like it holds a special place in my heart because that was like one of the first resource that was not explicitly promoting AA. If anything, doing the opposite of like talking about the dangers of it. It really brought to mind a lot of my experiences that I was like, they were just manipulating me. They were just using me. I was just another body in the revolving door of rehab. If I can go into a little bit of a background about like, I was in AA for 7 years, but I only quit drinking 3 years ago. So most of that time was drunk, in rehab, in sober living, some variation of that. And
Mm.
especially when I went down to Georgia, I live in Kentucky now, and so I went down to Georgia for rehab, the geographical cure, as they like to call it. And I went to this really nice bougie rehab. I was like 24 years old, so I was still under my dad's insurance, which was pretty good. And so I didn't have to pay out of pocket for it. But you know, like massages and acupuncture and equine therapy, and like they had a pool, and it was like in the Blue Ridge Mountains, and it was gorgeous. On the surface, it's like whipped cream. It's so pretty and sweet, and then underneath it, it's literal fucking fecal matter. Because I got out of that rehab. I was there for about 2 months, and I moved down to like the suburbs of Atlanta to this brand new IOP slash sober living. It was gorgeous. It's a great facility, you know, fully furnished apartments, all this stuff. Again, very similar to the rehab, whereas on the surface level, it's very good, decent environment. And within like 2 months of them opening this IOP slash sober living, I was like one of the first clients that was like done, started doing their program. Within a couple months of it opening, the owner was driving a McLaren, which is a incredibly expensive luxury sports car from England. I didn't know what that was at the time. I was like, that looks like a really expensive car. And I did a little reading the other day about it. It's like that guy easily paid $200,000 for it. And I think I've said this whole story on maybe a different podcast, but it's just, it stands out to me that all these little things over the years that I was like, that doesn't seem right. I'm like, yeah, because it's not right. This guy is like supposed to be helping us, and he's just racking up a giant fucking paycheck. I could go on and on about the revolving door of the rehab industry in like Georgia and Florida and like that whole section of the country. It's really fucking manipulative. Tara Grace talks about, I forget what the term for these people are, but like they're maybe outreach specialists or something, and they kind of like help you get into rehab, and they get bonuses for the number of people they help get into rehab, and ostensibly it's like, yeah, we need help, we need treatment, we need to do something different, and these people are like being really compassionate and be like, I understand you're struggling, because I was on the phone with this lady when I was like his ass drunk, you know, and she was like, listen, we got a bed, we can get you in tonight, blah blah blah, you're gonna have a hot meal, you're gonna have a comfy bed. I don't know if any of those people were actually in recovery. Like I really do wonder, and you know, speculation is, you know, it has its pros and cons, but I wonder how many of the people who claimed they were in recovery were just saying that because they knew they could get a big paycheck. Like I wonder how much of the
Mm,
manipulation was conscious. You know what I mean?
right. And does recovery even qualify you? I mean, it gives a good like testimonial that you know what you're talking about, but being in recovery doesn't qualify you. And a lot of the places being in recovery is the what gets you in the door. And it's
Mm.
like, but
It doesn't mean anything. It's just
and
like,
I
go ahead.
and I feel like if this guy, you know, had a miracle cure and was helping, you know, 95% of the people who come through his treatment center get sober, then yeah, get the DeLorean, get the whatever, McLaren, get
Yeah.
the go back to the future, whatever the
Yeah.
fuck. But the fact is that it's a 95% failure rate. And so if it really was flipped, then sure, if you really can have some like the path that really helps when every other path doesn't, then yes, let's reward you for that because it is a huge transformation and our life is worth it, our new life is worth it, whatever. I'm all for like paying people like for transformations or whatever. I have no problem with that. But the fact is that they're using the Minnesota model, which is 12 step, which is a 95% failure rate. So that's where it's the revolving door. And that's where it's like they know that you're a repeat customer, that they're going to get you again and again and again. And that's where to me, it feels less like help and more like a scam.
Absolutely. I was in one time, I counted it up, like detox rehab programs. I was in jail one time, hospitals, whatever. I got about 20 something, I counted about 20 something institutions that I was in. And I didn't complete all of those programs. I was checked in places 20 something times. The point remains that 20 times I was given the same solution, and over 20 times I still fucking drank, I still fucking used drugs, I still fucking was homeless type stuff. You would think after the first, let's say 3 times, 3 strikes, you're out. You would be like, okay, maybe let's switch gears and try a different approach. And it's like, no, ever. For years and years, it was just, I'm sorry if I'm getting a little heated because it's really frustrating.
Heat it up.
I feel betrayed and
Hmm.
lied to and manipulated. I feel like a fucking fool almost. Um, and since I've been, you know, deprogramming and finding all these alternatives, I'm like, this information is on the internet. It's mostly accessible, but you have to do a little bit of digging. And I went to a lot of rehabs that were like, we don't just do the 12 step thing, and they do smart recovery, which is basically cognitive behavioral therapy. There's refuge recovery, which is like a Buddhist model. There's celebrate recovery, which is a Christian model, which I'm like, I don't know how that's much different than 12 steps. But they were like, yeah, we have alternatives. And I'm like, okay, but what about the freedom model? What about rational recovery? What about something that is actually is like, no, AA doesn't work. Here's something that will work that's a little bit more evidence based. And those things are brand new to me. I'm absolutely with you, Kirsten, that it's like if somebody came to me and were like, hey, I have a drinking problem, I have a drug problem, I need help, I would not send them to AA. I absolutely, in no good conscience could I do that.
Mhm.
I would be like, check out Rational Recovery, check out the Freedom Model, check out the Sinclair Method, check out,
Mhm.
harm reduction modalities, like anything but AA. The only time I think that I would even maybe say AA might help a person is if they're like really religious already and they have their own concept of a god and they have like their own church or whatever. And like if you are religious, like sure, 12 steps will probably be good for you, but I'm first of all, I'm not religious. I'm an atheist. Second of all, I don't really know anybody in my circle who is adamantly religious. Um so that's the only situation where I would be like, AA might work for you, might be okay, but it's like that's a huge caveat that it's like, no, it's fucking religious. Like stop lying to people's faces like, oh, it's spiritual, not religious. Like, no, it's fucking religious. It's a fucking cult religion. Just call it what it is. If it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck.
100%.
Yeah.
What stood out for me when you were talking is that depending upon where you look, people tend to agree that AA is a 5% success rate, which is a 95% failure rate. So that's really you trying 20 times before you had success falls in line exactly with that because 5%, that's like 1 out of 20, right? Like if
Yeah,
we're doing
yeah.
like stats. So your own experience shows that this model is not that's why I'm saying if this guy can get you on the first time, pay him all the money that you need to the
Sure,
first time,
yeah.
and then you're done. Because all the money that you spend all the other 19 times, like just a good payment up front
Yeah.
if you want to go that route. But we don't even need to go that
Yeah.
route because, and I know Sinclair Method's not for everybody, but when I found out about Sinclair Method, like, I don't know, like 15 years after I got sober, I wish I would have done that because I didn't want to give up alcohol. I wanted my consequences to stop,
Yep.
which Sinclair Method would have helped if it was going to help for me. Then it slowly has you be less interested neurologically in drinking, so you don't have to do anything except take a pill that costs a dollar a pop before you drink, right? And so I'm like, oh, so I didn't have to spend tens of thousands of dollars on rehab. We had equine therapy too, by the way. But I was afraid.
Yeah.
I was so anxious. I was like afraid of animals at that time. I was like, I'm not going near a fucking horse, man. I'm
Yeah.
having a panic attack because they ripped me off the benzos and I'm like literally shaking. I'm the one that's shaking in the corner because I'm like hardcore rush coming off benzos. I'm like a
Mm-hmm.
hot mess, like
Yeah.
not okay. Or
Yeah.
I'm so angry that I would leave group and go sit on the driveway outside, like trying to breathe myself out of a panic
Mm-hmm.
attack. I didn't fuck the horses, man. I'm like so scared. They're gonna know I'm scared and they're gonna kick me.
Yeah.
I'm good. I can't be around an animal. They're gonna know. They're gonna
Yeah.
know how scared I am.
Animals do have that intuition. Like a little side note, I did a lot of horseback. I was a horse girl growing up. Like so I did a lot of horseback riding when I was a kid. If I didn't have that background, I would not have been comfortable around horses because horses are gigantic and powerful, and if they kick you the wrong way, you could die. Yeah, equine therapy. What is that? Again, something with absolutely no evidence behind it. It's like, yeah, like hanging out with animals is good for the soul. Like it's like the unconditional love of an animal is really cool, but it's like how does that help with addiction? How does that help with recovery?
They call it all therapy. Like we had like art therapy.
Yeah.
Like one day we tie-dyed t-shirts out on the lawn and they called it art therapy. I'm like, you're literally just charging us a crap load of money and doing like kindergarten projects, which not that I minded it, but that was a very expensive craft day, if you
Yes,
know what I mean. Like,
exactly.
what is dye? Like $10, maybe $20. Like,
Yeah.
why it's not therapy. It's like it's entertainment. It's like keep them
Yeah.
busy. So yeah.
I think going back to the Sinclair method, when I heard about it in rehab, first of all, it was talked about very condescendingly. And the way it was described to me was that, oh, well, you take this pill and you're not going to get drunk anymore. And I'm like, that's not even how it works. That's not the mechanism of action with naltrexone. And it was just all this stuff was blatantly misrepresented to us, you know? Fucking bonkers.
Well, it's like the competitor, right? So you spend thousands or more likely tens of thousands of dollars on per 30 days in rehab. And then you're going to be a repeat customer, or you're going to stay 3 months, or you're going to come back because the huge failure rate, right? Or you take a pill that's only $1 a day, meaning like most people, not everybody, because there are people who cannot afford that, but a lot of people can afford $1 a day for a pill, or $1 every time they drink. In the book, it says it's like 78% effective. And so if it is that successful, and you are one of those people that it's successful for, paying $30 if you drink every day for the month versus, let's call it 30,000 or 50,000 or even 5,000 if you go to like a really cheap one,
Yeah.
right? Because even the cheap ones are very expensive.
Yeah.
You would have to kick that solution down because you're trying to make all that money.
Yep.
You can't say that this really, they say AA is free. I mean, it's not, because it requires lifetime free labor, and you got to believe all this baloney. You got to forever recruit and indoctrinate others. So you are perpetuating the program, right? You are like in the not a chain letter, a Ponzi scheme, like in the hierarchy.
Yeah.
Like you are the one, you got to perpetuate it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all the time, the energy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not lucrative to give somebody a solution that works. It's just not.
So to be able to solve somebody's problem, a big problem, very inexpensively and very like effortlessly, is a huge threat to a tycoon. What do you call it? Like a industry giant, like the recovery
Tycoon.
industry.
Yeah. I think that's the word.
I don't know what I'm...
Industry giant is even better. Like the image of a giant is very scary and ominous, and I think of like David and Goliath kind of thing, which is maybe not the right analogy, but anyway, it's just crazy like how much was misrepresented and how much was swept under the rug or like shoved in the basement and locked away. This information is not accepted in the 12-step circles. I remember going back to the first time I was introduced to AA, I was in a real bad spot with my drinking, and I finally was like, okay, I need help. I was like basically detoxing on my mom's couch, and she was doing the mom thing and getting on the internet, and she found this inpatient facility in town. And I did like a week there. It was like, acute stabilization. Of course, a week felt like 2 months when you're getting off alcohol. And they introduced me to AA, and I was like, this sounds like hot fucking nonsense. This sounds like religion. This sounds like a cult. Like, all of my intuition and my gut reactions were like, this is stupid at best. I did a little bit of reading. Just after I got out of that 1 week, I was like, reading, I think, blogs maybe about like why AA doesn't work, and people in AA, my sponsor, because I got a sponsor for some reason, and other people in meetings were like very condescending about people who dissented against AA, and basically ad hominem, I think was the one you were talking about recently. The what is it called? What's that?
You attack the person and instead of the argument.
Yes. And it was like, well, this person's coming off really heated and angry and blah, blah, blah. So it's like, why are you going to trust somebody who's emotional? And it's a logical fallacy. That's what I was trying to look for. And it's a fallacy. It's a way to distract from what's actually going on. One of the things that I need to read that I haven't started reading is the Orange Papers website. And I remember like coming across that when I was first looking at some alternatives to AA. And it's just wild in hindsight. Like, I wish I had read that. They told me, like, don't have contempt prior to investigation. Like, give AA a shot. And I was like, fine, I'll give it a shot. And then I just got roped into this fucking cult, and it was really hard to leave, because you say the same thing to a person enough times over and over again, that person's going to start to believe it. I started to believe it. I thought if I took one drink I would fucking die. Another anecdote for me that's been really really helpful, about like, I don't have a disease, there's no physical allergy, there's no phenomenon of craving, whatever, is that I was working at a bar last year. I was bartending. which is not the first time I did that as somebody who wasn't drinking. So that wasn't an issue. But we were like testing out new drinks, me and my manager, and I took a sip of what I thought was orange juice. I was like, that orange juice tastes really bad. And she was like, oh, that's because it has champagne in it. That was a mimosa. And I was like, fuck. Because I was still like 1 foot in, 1 foot out with the AA thing. And so I was like, I did the AA thing. I was like, hey, I'm going to step outside, make a phone call, frantically called somebody else in the program who, like, I hadn't even talked to in months. But I remember him sharing in a meeting that he accidentally took a drink of something alcoholic unintentionally because he just got it mixed up with something else. And I was like, "Yo, I just took a drink of a mimosa. Like, am I fucked?" And he was like, "Nah, man. Like, it was an accident. Like, you're gonna be okay. Like, your motivation wasn't to get fucked up." And it's just like the argument that an alcoholic needs to maintain complete abstinence, that even one drop of alcohol will set off this whole allergy in the body because our body metabolizes alcohol differently from normal people. It's not true. Like, I had one sip of a mimosa and I went back to my day. Like, I didn't fucking go on a bender or anything. It's like that. It's just a fucking lie.
What I'm hearing is the cognitive dissonance we carry when we're in there.
Hmm.
So on one hand, he's saying it's all about your intention, and but on the other hand, it's one drop is going to lead you to death essentially. And it's like, well, which is true? Is
Which
it
is
my
it?
intention? So if my intention was clean or clear or like innocent, then I don't have the phenomenon of craving. But if I actually had a desire and did it intentionally, then I will have the craving,
Hmm.
and then I can't stop, and then I will die.
Yeah. Yeah. It does.
So is it the intention or is it a spiritual malady?
And that's like, what does spirituality have to do with substance use disorder? Like, what is it? It doesn't have anything to do with it. Like, I think spirituality is great. I love my crystals and my minerals and my quartz and whatever. I love burning candles. I don't really consider myself a spiritual person, but like a lot of my friends like do tarot. Like, I think that stuff is awesome, but it doesn't have anything to do with getting over a substance use problem. Other than maybe finding new hobbies and new ways to spend your time, that's not what cures substance use disorders. It's literally completely irrelevant in that context.
What has helped you resolve your substance use disorders? What have you found has been the path that's worked for you?
So the last time I drank, I went to another detox facility and I got out and I was still in the program and I went back to my sponsor and I was like, okay, let's, start working the steps, blah, blah, blah. And so a lot of people have asked me, and I've asked myself, like, I was still in AA the last time I quit drinking. So what did keep me sober in those, in those early months of sobriety or whatever? And I still am trying to figure that one out. I'm still trying to figure out what kept me sober in the early months. And like, I guess if I were to pick something now, it first of all, it wouldn't be AA, it wouldn't be my sponsor, it wouldn't be a higher power, it wouldn't be any of that. I I want to say I kept myself sober, but the indoctrination goes so deep that I'm like, oh, I'm being selfish and self-centered, like I'm not being humble, like I'm trying to take my power back. I need to give my will over to a higher power because it's just like it's in my core, but it's like, no, I kept myself sober in those early months. Like I was the one who didn't pick up a drink. I was the one who committed to being in a sober living and like doing the program. It wasn't because I had a spiritual awakening. It wasn't because I had a higher power that I relied on. Like, I just kept choosing to not drink because my drinking was really really bad. But I feel the same way about my drinking as I do about my time in AA, with how much it damaged me, how much trauma like I got from this time, and like some of it's self-inflicted almost. um so so I think what kept me sober is me and my decisions and this really strong desire to be like, I need to change. Like, I'm
Mm.
tired, man. And so it just kind of became second nature at a certain point, because like I never had a spiritual awakening. I never had a spiritual experience or anything. Like I had all this stuff that I like would contextualize that at the time, because that's what I was told to do. But the like second part of my sobriety now, which I don't like to use the term sobriety, was when I started using cannabis last year. That's been a whole journey in and of itself, because at that point I had quit drinking 2 years before that. Yeah, it was just after the 2 year mark of quitting drinking, and I'd been thinking about using cannabis for months before that. After 2 years of not drinking, I'd been thinking about using cannabis a lot. I'd been weighing the pros and cons. I'd been talking about it. I was kind of doing the AA thing with it, which I wasn't in AA anymore at that point, but I was like, running it past people I trusted and like trying to find my motivation, blah blah blah. And what it came down to, the day that I had one of those THC drinks, like a little THC soda, which by the way are super tasty. It was a night where I was like basically having a panic attack, which is something I've struggled with for most of my adult life. Another thing that I struggled with for most of my adult life is self harm, which is cutting. And so it was one of those nights where I was like having a panic attack, feeling low key suicidal, wanting to self harm. I had this THC drink in my fridge. I bought it like a week ago, and I was like sitting on it. I was like, am I gonna roll these dice again? Because I was taught, I was indoctrinated that if you take one sip, if one hit, one whatever, like you're gonna go on a bender and you're gonna end up in the ground. And I was like, I you can edit this out if you want, but I was like, I'm about to put a fucking bullet in my brain if I want to like slice my arm open or put a bullet in my brain, or I'm gonna drink this drink. Which again, if you want to edit that out, it's a little visceral. I know that's gonna be triggering for some people, but I drank the THC drink. It was 5 milligrams, which is a very small amount, but of course, I hadn't had anything in years, so um, I had no tolerance for it. So I was like, I drank it. I was sitting on my porch, and I was just like the panic attack kind of went away, and I didn't want to like hurt myself. And I was just like, okay, I feel a little goofy, and it wore off after about an hour, and I went to bed, and I was fine, and I woke up the next day, and I was like, they told me if I smoked weed that it wasn't going to be the high or the drunk that I wanted, that it was going to lead me back to my drug of choice, which was alcohol. Then you drink one beer and then you're going to end up in jail. Play the tape through, kind of like slippery slope, whatever. That didn't happen. A few days after I had that first drink, I bought some gummies, which were, if I remember correctly, the gummies were like 200 milligrams a piece, which I went from 5 to 200. So, needless to say, it was way too much. So I ate one gummy and I was useless for the rest of the day. And then I went to bed and I woke up the next day, and I had this realization that like I can still kind of feel how that felt in the moment of like I didn't think about drinking one time. I was off my rocker on some weed gummies, and I did not think about drinking. Like it just didn't even come to my mind. It just goes to show again another example of like none of the things that they taught me in AA are true. Um, so yeah. Anyway, cannabis. All that being said, like cannabis has been super helpful for me, and I'm not gonna sit here and say that like I have a perfect relationship with it, but I also don't subscribe to this like abstinence only puritanical kind of mindset around it, where it's like, yeah, maybe some days I smoke a little too much, and I'm like, maybe I don't do the dishes when I said I was gonna do the dishes because I'm smoking weed and eating potato chips and watching a cartoon. That's not the end of the world. Like I don't have to
Mm-mm.
subscribe to this dogmatic mentality anymore. It really is like, taking the deep breath, it's really like freeing. It really is freeing. It's like this weight that's been lifted, that I'm like, I have freedom to move about in the world, like as a regular fucking person. Yeah.
I love that so much. I'm really happy to hear about the freedom and choosing to not be in a purity model and not be in a religion that you didn't want to be converted into. And I'm really glad you're here.
Thank you. Yeah.
And I think what you've shared is very relatable. 100% alcohol saved my life when I was a teenager and I started drinking. 100%.
Hmm.
And sometimes it's about harm reduction. It's about maybe this isn't the best choice, but it's a way better choice than what I have. Two things here, and one's a little bad and one's really bad or even terminal, right? And it's like, what am I going to do here? And alcohol was that for me a lot of the time. That's why I'm on team harm reduction, not on team abstinent, even though I happen to be sober. Like that's not where I stand at all. It's not what we want. It's not what, and life is brutal. Life can be
Yeah.
brutal, and to be able to have a break, whether that's going to be with a brownie, a THC brownie or something, or whether that's going to be with Netflix, or whether that's going to be with a drink, whatever it is, like I'm over like the gold stars or the sobriety chip coins for your abstinent medallion,
Yeah.
like I'm over it all. I'm over the status game, I'm over the purity culture. So I really just, yeah, I'm really glad that you chose yourself and you chose to do what you could do to get through that moment,
You're gonna make
and
me
that
cry.
and how freeing it's actually been.
Yeah.
And I can see why you really love Tara's story and
Hmm.
and her message, and I do too. And like, I never wanted to get sober. At the end, for me, I was not choosing sobriety. I was choosing to live because alcohol was killing me. And so that's why I'm like Sinclair method, because for me, if I could have taken a pill that would have made alcohol like slowly not kill me and like me actually come alive, I would have done that. And sometimes it is about just getting through the moment. And I think that's true for all of us. I think we all face moments like that. Not even people who have been to the cult religion of AA.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Harm reduction has been super helpful that I've started to lean into that mentality, which I keep it simple with myself, where it's like, what is less harmful in this moment? Like in that instance I was talking about, when the first time I had the THC drink in years, I was like, THC is less harmful than harming myself. And then
yeah.
there are some days where I'm like, maybe I could, like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of an example of like something that's, what if I sat down and like did a little painting or did a little craft? Like that would maybe be less harmful in the moment than getting really, really stoned and zonking out on the couch. But again, it's just like, what is less harmful in the moment? What is going to move you forward and keep you okay? And it's not black and white. There's not right or wrong. It's person to person, case by case, which is just not what we were taught in the program. The whole black and white thinking is just, when cognitive dissonance, what's the term? Stinking thinking, where black and white thinking is like, you talk to any therapist that knows anything, anybody who knows anything about cognitive behavioral therapy, it's like black and white thinking is a classic example of cognitive dissonance or whatever. Just like catastrophizing, which is like you take one drink and you're going to end up dead. All these things that are like very easily identifiable as maladaptive thought patterns are reinforced by AA. It's just so unhelpful.
I totally agree. Like for me, after having been through all the traumas I had been through and what I was dealing with and being neurodivergent and not knowing it and just my whole life experience, I actually needed to be lifted up, not pushed down further. So I needed like an opposite approach. I needed to learn how to regulate my nervous system. I needed to learn that I matter, that I have value, that I could trust myself. I didn't need to abandon myself further. I had already done that. That's what the alcohol was for me. To me, it's very individual, like what works for us and what we've been through and what the right, like like AA says, the next right step. The next right
Yeah.
step might be to get baked on the couch. Not for me, because not for me. But that's the other thing too. It's like everybody's different.
Hmm.
Like, I never liked pot because it gave me anxiety attacks. The few times that I smoked it, most of those times it turned me into a full-on panic attack where I would just be laying in the bed, and like breathing until it was over. Like, what the hell? Why does everybody like this? So for me, it's not what I would do to relax from a hard day. but the alcohol calmed me down, or like when I was, taking Klonopin for my anxiety or whatever. But so everyone's going to have something different that's going to vibe with them. And there is no one path. It's not all or nothing. It's not. So I love that you've created what works for you. And would you consider yourself in recovery now, or what do you think about it all now? Where do you stand?
I don't think I like the word recovery. I don't like the word recovery for myself. I really like harm reduction
Mm.
words and phrases. If I were to describe where I'm at with my substance use, I'm abstinent from alcohol and I use cannabis recreationally. That's what it is. And it's recovery is a good shorthand word for it, but I don't know, I can't think of another word. Like, you can call me a stoner too. I'm like fine with that. Like, if I wanted to lean into the stoner thing, but like, Kirsten, you just haven't found the right strain. Like, but no, I just like I'm abstinent from alcohol and I use cannabis. Period. Like, it doesn't have to be this big whole thing. Like, I try to do what works for me, which is and that's been a whole journey trying to listen to myself and my brain and my body and my intuition and my gut and be like, what does feel right for me? What do I know about myself? Like when I was a kid, like a little bit of my childhood was that I remember my mom saying to me, like, more than once in a very adamant way that like I know you better than you know yourself, and that's like that was a core belief of mine, which was reinforced by AA, and I am 31 years old trying to find like what I know about myself. It's like I feel like a fucking kid again sometimes. A kid with like bills and like stuff I have to take care of. It's a nightmare sometimes, but other times it's pretty good. Life is pretty good these days.
Totally.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. I feel like when I look back at my life, I feel like alcohol stunted my growth in a lot of ways because when you're drunk, you're not necessarily learning or growing or evolving. And I feel like AA did the same. Well, although I did learn some things in AA, it also was like 10 years of all of my free time was volunteering for the cause, was reading the book with other people, taking other people to coffee that were new, and basically recruiting, showing up for other people, going to meetings and sharing my experience, strength, and hope. So I'm indoctrinating for like in all my spare time. So I wasn't learning. I mean, I was still learning things, but I wasn't as like now I'm like, wow, I have so much free time.
Yeah. Yeah, when I quit drinking, I was like, what do I do with my time? Like I'm so bored. Like half of my drinking was triggered by boredom. My drinking was triggered by a lot of things, but then I quit drinking and I was like, I have all this fucking free time. And they're like, go to a meeting, do some service work, get a sponsor, get a sponsee. That was my entire life for 7 years. And so another aspect of my journey since leaving AA is like dealing with the isolation I've been feeling, where I was saying earlier that like I don't have any friends in my community that I know of anyway that have the same experience as me, but also trying to remind myself that like I don't need people who have the exact same experience as me. I don't need that out of a person for them to be my friend. Um,
Mm.
and another slightly off topic realization I had that like I've been working on in therapy is like the fact that I'm a little bit isolated like isn't my fault. It doesn't reflect on my character, it doesn't reflect on who I am as a person. And I feel like that was another thing that they were told in AA. It was like, oh, you're isolating, you're headed towards a relapse, you should go to a meeting, you should talk to your sponsor. And I'm like, why are we pathologizing all of this? Why are
Mm.
we turning it into something it's not? Like, I agree, isolation is not the healthiest thing for everyone all the time. But sometimes it is. Like on one hand, I do want friends, I want community, I want, at the risk of using a triggering word, I want fellowship. But on the other hand, it's like I have a lot of time with myself that I'm learning to like do things I like with myself, by myself. Which one of the things I've been doing recently is like listening to audiobooks and podcasts. And I started painting again recently, which has been just
Mm.
really, really great. I started using, I bought some paint markers. Game changer for me in like trying to create art. It's been so good, and I'm just like, I would have never done this when I was in AA because I was like going to meetings and sponsoring people and doing the steps, and so it's just been it's a whole journey trying to figure out who the fuck I am anymore.
It sounds like you're doing much better.
Yeah, thank you. Some days are easier than others. Some days are really fucking hard. Like I still go to therapy like more than once a week. I still struggle at my job. Like I still struggle like financially. Like I still struggle a lot. But when I take a step back and I look at things on paper, like look at the data, the evidence, the reality of things, I'm like, okay, things are okay. Things are good. They're not perfect, but they're not shit like they were when I was drinking or when I was stuck in AA, you know? Yeah.
That's so awesome. It's so good. I mean, you've come so far. It's so nice to witness
Thank you.
or to
Thank
hear
you.
about it.
Yeah, it's really hard for me to recognize like the growth and the things I've been doing that like I am getting better at because it's been just such a slow progression and it's not linear. And it really is, they say in AA, like, oh, relapse can be part of recovery. If relapse was really okay, why do I have to keep going back to day one every single time? Why do I have to keep picking up that silver chip or that white chip or whatever? Why do I have to start back at step one every single time? That makes me think of, I had a sponsee that I was working with. I feel really bad about her in particular because like we'd been working together for a few months and she'd apparently been smoking weed that whole time, and at the time I was like hardcore AA true believer abstinence only, and I was like, well, you've been smoking weed, so we were on step like 8 or 9, and I was like, we got to go back to step 1, and she's like, what the fuck? Like I like like I just told you my deepest darkest secrets, and I just like did this whole spiritual thing, and like I'm gonna go back, and you want me to go back to step 1? It's like I quit drinking. I haven't been drinking. And in my mind I was like, well, you've been smoking weed, but that's a something that alters your mood or your mind or whatever. Um yeah, so all it's like I have to take some accountability too that I was doing the indoctrination, I was doing the recruiting, I was doing the free labor. The friend I mentioned earlier was like she was in a bad way with her drinking, and I was like quick to get her in a meeting. I was like, you got to do this. It's really helped me. Blah blah blah. And it was very quick. Like even while I was still in the program, I very quickly saw her shift to this group mentality, and yeah, yeah, it's hard to take accountability for like the things that I did, but it's like again, I was being so genuine. I thought I was helping people at the time, and it always makes me wonder like how many people in the program, in meetings, in working in rehabs and all that, how many people believe they're doing the right thing and how many people know they're not doing the right thing and are doing it for ulterior motives of some kind. Because I didn't have ulterior motives. I wanted to help people quit drinking. I wanted to help them get sober. I wanted to bring light into their life because I was in a really dark place when I quit drinking. And I don't know, it's just so funny now to like again, not everything's black and white. Like there's a ton of gray area in between. Like, yeah, these were my actions and these were shitty actions, but I wasn't really in control of my actions. I was doing what other people told me to do. I was doing what the program told me to do.
Yeah. The way that I look at it now is that sobriety or recovery is about agency and autonomy. That alcohol took away my agency and my autonomy. I was not acting in my best interest always when I was drunk. It's definitely depending upon
Me
how much I
either.
drank
Yeah.
and what time, how long I've been drinking, especially if it's like a 3-day bender or something. So alcohol was self-betrayal, AA was self-betrayal, and recovery for me isn't abstinent. Recovery for me is to authenticity. It's to agency and to owning my power and to making choices on my best interest, even if I make mistakes, even if I'm like, oops, and then go another way or whatever. But to me, that's what recovery is now. I'm recovering from self-betrayal. And I got knocked into self-betrayal at a young age, right? Society tells us not to trust ourselves, mirrors that in some ways. Trauma, especially childhood sexual abuse, can make us think that something's wrong with us. Being neurodivergent, especially not knowing it, you're like, why are all the brains different than mine? I must be different. Must be something wrong with me. I should abandon myself and go with them. For me, it's like the biggest trauma that I've had is the self-gaslighting because I've been felt like I've been gaslit by the world, right? And so then alcohol helped me get out of self even more. AA is about getting out of self. So then recovery for me is like, no, bro, I could be alone and the only one who thinks this, but it doesn't mean I'm wrong. It just means nobody agrees with me. I'm not wrong. I don't have to abandon my thoughts, my ideas, what feels natural to me, the way I express myself, the way I think, the way I perceive, whatever. I don't have to abandon myself to conform. And so I couldn't really recover to me just to being a freaking human when I was inside AA because it was a group think, right? So I don't look at recovery now as the goal is abstinent or a chip or whatever. I think of it as just being whoever you are / whoever you want to be, depending upon how you look at it.
Yeah, it's been a really interesting journey finding those things because I too used alcohol to like I didn't want to be in my body. I didn't want to be in the world. I just like used it to check the fuck out. Because when my drinking really started to take a dive for the worst was this period of isolate. I went away to college, to like a college I didn't go to in a new town, blah blah. I didn't have any friends, didn't know how to make friends, socially awkward, probably neurodivergent of some flavor, whatever, didn't know any of that then. Point being, I just dove right into a bottle every single night. Physical dependency took on pretty quickly, and from there, as the story goes, but I just leaned into drinking because I needed to not feel alone. I needed to like have some sense of camaraderie. And I felt like if I was drinking, I was, to quote Bill Wilson, I was a part of the world at last. I had arrived. No matter what the situation was, like I had a bottle in my hand and I was going to be okay. And so when I got to AA, the one thing that did, I guess, keep me coming back kind of was like there were people there. There were people that were like, we love you. We're here for you. We'll love you until you learn to love yourself, which again, I realize now is love bombing. It was what I wanted at the time. It wasn't what I needed. But just, I am learning to, find what I like, find what I need, listen to my body, which is like the body image issues run deep for me. AA was like, while it wasn't like alcohol, where like alcohol really just, it numbs your nervous system and it's literally poison to your brain and your body. But AA really it was a way to, again, not be inside of myself, which is what they tell you. And it's been really, really, really hard to learn how to do those things. When I do get a little glimpse of a light at the end of the tunnel, I'm like, okay, I'm moving in the right direction. And it's not linear and it's not black and white, and like that's okay. Like I'm not a I'm not like cursed with original sin because I was born an alcoholic. Even like right now, I'm trying to say like I'm a good person, and like part of there's that little AA voice in my head that's like, you need to humble yourself. You should probably get on your knees and say a prayer. I'm like, no, I'm a good person. I'm not a fucking sociopath. Like even though I did some shit that I'm not proud of because I was in AA, I'm an okay person. Like I do things genuinely. I'm just one person also.
Totally.
Yeah.
I really relate to that a lot. I also have a voice that likes to come out of in my head sometimes telling me that I'm a bad person.
Yeah.
I did this one like inner child retreat thing where I just remember, I won't get into the details because it's quite intense what we did there. Basically, we were in a padded basement. Our inner child drew a photo of our parents and we were beating the crap out of it, right?
I love that.
With techno blaring. One of the things that came out of me in the heat of that moment that was so from the depth of my core that I didn't realize it until I was releasing, like, I guess, rage from my system in this healing environment was like, you can have your fucking good girl back. Like, because I didn't realize that I had been carrying this burden of the good girl, right? Like if I'm good, mommy, daddy, teacher, society, school, whoever, I'm going to get the love that I think I need to survive. So I had this like good girl thing in me that I have to be good and I'm not good there. Therefore I have to be good or whatever. And it ran really, really deep in me. And yeah, the healing for me was like, all of a sudden I just started screaming, you can have your fucking good girl back. Like, not that I'm bad, bitches,
Yeah.
but like, I'm not here to be perfect. I'm not here to be good for you. I just want to be myself.
Yeah.
And like, sometimes I'm an asshole. Like, that's just, it is what it is. You know, I might be dysregulated. I might say something without thinking. And that's what it is to be human. I don't need to inventory it. I don't need to find my part in it. My part is I'm a fucking human. I have a right to exist as I am. I don't need to be anybody for you. I don't need to be under a microscope constantly doing a nightly inventory of every emotion that I have. I'm allowed to have emotions. And if I'm not, I'm screwed because that's the human experience. Anger's allowed, resentment's allowed. All of it's allowed. It's a messy experience. I don't need to be perfect, and either do you. And if you offend me, let's work through it. You know, let's just try to come back together and have like a what do they call it? A repair, right? And if I offend you, then let's figure out how to come back to. Or let's realize we're not for each other and move on and find who is for us. But it's the constant like being so self-critical that I didn't need, that AA gave me, that's part of the deprogramming I found, is that to not put myself under that, like, needing to monitor myself constantly for being the good girl or the good AA or whatever. I mean, it kind of feels like a little bit like the religion part of AA too, like being pure and being not sinning, like you said, the original sin or whatever. I'm like, I don't want any of that.
Which, like, I forget what part of it, but the concept of, what is it? The Oxford group was like getting rid of sin, and then Bill Wilson turned it into something else.
Resentment.
Resentment, was that what it was? Yeah.
Yeah, he swapped sin for resentment.
Yep. And so, you know, it is directly descended from a religious cult. I've been working my way towards doing inner child work with my therapist, and like the thing, the memory that always comes up when I think about my inner child. um there was this one time I was like in third grade or something, and like I didn't have any friends, and I was crying under the slide at recess. It's like, I'm gonna cry right now. And I just like, I want to be my adult self and go to this little kid crying under the slide and just like give him a big hug and be like, You're fine. Like, you're not doing anything wrong because you don't have friends. You're not doing anything wrong because like people don't like you. You're definitely mentally ill. You're probably neurodivergent. Your family life sucks. Like, you're okay. And I just want to go to that kid and just be like, you're okay, dude. It's not everything's your fault. You don't have a part in every single thing that happens in your life. I have a friend at work who, I forget what, I think she calls it the screaming forest, but there's a lot of little woods and forests around town, like on the outskirts. And she's like, yeah, there's this one place I go that it's like a mile and a half away from anything. And I just go into the forest and I just scream at the top of my lungs. And I'm like, take me next time. Take me with you next time when it's not super cold outside, when it's not raining, and I'll report back and let you know how that goes, because a good scream sounds really good some
Yeah.
days. Yeah.
The thing that I did was called primal therapy, and they call it like the primal scream. I think that was like the name from like the 70s or something. Yeah, letting it rip and then being surprised about what comes out. And like, then even the blocks of like, I don't have any, I was like, I'm not angry. I have no anger. But then once you get into the motions, like, ah! Well,
Yeah.
for me. Yeah, you know, and what you're saying, like, I've done things exactly like that. I have, in my mind, I have closed my eyes and I have gone up to that version of me who wasn't feeling loved or enough or lovable or whatever. And I have embraced her in my arms, and I have done that in my mind's eye. And I have comforted her, and the way I think about it, it's like reparenting, right? I'm giving myself, present day Kirsten is giving little Kirsten the love that she didn't get then, giving it to her now. And when I learned internal family systems, I'm like, oh, okay, so there's therapeutic models that incorporate this. When I left AA, I did all these like therapy trainings. I'm not a therapist, but I was like, what the fuck? What do they teach the therapists about addiction and recovery?
Yeah.
Because like, obviously it's not a fatal progressive disease, but what the fuck are they teaching these people? So I did all these trainings. I did 2 full-on internal family systems trainings. And that's what I was like, oh, that's what it's called. And so then I just would do it on myself. Like when I left AA, I was doing this a lot, where I'd close my eyes and imagine a different part of myself Like, I really like that model of like inner children, right? There's different parts of myself at different ages. Not like, to me, it's a metaphor.
Yeah.
And what I've learned, like in the science, is that when I can like meet that part of myself with love instead of feeling the feelings of it, like nobody loves me, I shouldn't, I don't deserve to exist or whatever. For me, the I'm not lovable thing like went really, really, that was like the deepest one for me, that people don't love me. If I'm myself, nobody will love me. And so, and now I understand that a lot of people who end up later in life get assessed as autistic. Like, that's pretty common for us. It might be common for a lot of humans, but I know for sure it's like, oh, okay. Yeah, because I'm different. So I'm kind of. So, anyways, when I've gone really in deep and like, something about when you have empathy for that part of yourself and you're giving that part of yourself love, it's rewiring our brains because we're building a new like neural pathway in there that has a new, we're relating to that part of ourselves different, and it's actually changing our brain. So we're not reliving the trauma because we're not going in as the traumatized or hurt child. We're going in as the loving parent comforting it. So when I learned the science on it too, I was like, oh, this is what I needed. I didn't need a religious cult. I needed to learn how to love the parts of myself that I needed to medicate because I didn't know how to be with that intense amount of pain. I didn't know how to be with grief, with rage, with guilt, with shame, with any, especially the shame, but like all of it. I had to disown all those parts of myself. I couldn't be angry. I had to be the good girl. So when I, like, for me, recovery was learning how to be with all of me. So that if I want to do something, I mean, I'm still sober, but like if I wanted to drink or have a, I don't know, I probably wouldn't ever do pot ever again because it was so like not okay for me.
Yeah.
But if I was going to take, I don't know, I was at the rave, like if I was going to do MDMA again, like if I was going to do anything again, then yeah, do it because I want to, not because I need to. Like that's kind of my mentality on it now. I can take care of myself. And also if I either don't feel like it or if I want fun, then I can reach for a substance. But to have tools in my tool belt that I know how to work, be with myself, and that's what I wish was like taught on a broad level. That to me that would be a recovery program, is like literally how to work with every feeling, because that is so much of my early sobriety. And even after leaving AA, it's been about learning how to be okay with whatever arises in me. And I'm hypersensitive, so my feelings can be really, really big.
Same. Yeah. Yeah. The phase that I'm kind of like shifting away from, where I was like in a lot of anger recently, like allowing myself to feel angry, because I've never really been much of an angry person, which looking back on it, it's probably because like I didn't allow myself to feel that because I was told I was bad or whatever.
Mhm.
And then in AA, it's like, oh, anger is the dubious luxury of normal men or whatever, which is, what does that even fucking, what does that even mean? Um, but to allow myself to feel my feelings and not pathologize it and not like put
Mhm.
it in this context of what does this mean with my higher power kind of whatever blah blah blah, and just like feeling my feelings is so hard. And there are days where it's like, I don't want to feel this, I'm just gonna smoke some weed and I'm gonna,
Yeah.
probably eat emotionally, like eat my feelings. And again,
Yeah.
going back to the harm reduction thing, like that's not the end of the world. That's just what I need to
Mhm.
get through that thing. And it's not like I'm not working on finding other coping skills or tools in my toolbox. Like I want to get to a point where I think Emma on the group thinking podcast, like she chose to drink after she left, and she's like, I do it because it's fun. I do it because I like how it tastes. I like how it feels. And I kind of want to get to that spot with my cannabis use where it's just like, it's a little treat, it's a little fun social thing. It's not to regulate, it's not to hide, it's not to, because I feel a compulsion to do it, which I don't. It's just feeling my feelings being in my body with like all that shame and guilt from like the little kid inside of me that needs to be reparented. I'm heading in that direction with my therapist, but I'm not all the way there yet because it's just such a scary thing, because that kid was just shut down at every
Mm.
every fucking turn. And I love that you brought up internal family systems, because that's something I think I heard about that in rehab actually, which of course it wasn't, dived into very deep at all. They're just kind of like surface level stuff. But that is, thank you for reminding me of that, because that's definitely something I want to look into, because I think that would be helpful with the whole reparenting journey. Um, yeah, I really appreciate that.
I found it very, very helpful, healing, and liberating.
Hmm.
Extremely liberating. I kind of intuitively started doing something like it before I had ever heard about it. And what that looked like is when I'd be really scared to do something, I would stop and I'd put my hand on my heart and I'd just be like, what are you afraid of? What are you afraid of right now? And I would imagine I was talking to like a 5 or 6 year old version of myself. And whenever I would check in with myself, it was always the same. I actually didn't, because I'd be like, what do you need right now? Actually, was a question I'd ask. What do you need right now? And when I would close my eyes and say, what do you need right now? My whole body would just relax. And it was as if what I learned and what I made that mean, what it seemed to mean to me, was the only thing I needed in that moment of fear or whatever about going to some, like, I remember one time I was really afraid to go to this breath work, like, thing that I was signed up for, paid for. And then I was
Yeah,
like, breath work is scary. It's fucking intense. Ah!
yeah,
I was so scared to go. And I remember I put my hand on my heart. I was like, what do you need right now? And my whole system just relaxed. And what I found is that a lot of the times in those moments where I'm getting really worked up, all I actually need was that moment with myself to check in with myself to say, what do you need? Because me saying, what do you need? And imagining like little Kirsten there, all I needed was a moment of love and now I'm good. Little Kirsten needed big Kirsten to say it's okay, and then we move on. And I'm like, whoa, all I needed was just a moment to see what do you need. It didn't even make like I don't know if that sounds logically right, but it was like emotionally, it just reset my system or something. And then it got me out of like fight or flight and panic into like rest and digest calm so that I could make the decision for myself. Well, do I really want to go now that I feel calm, or do I just, is it a hell no? I'm like, no, actually I do want to go. I'm just scared. Okay,
yeah.
I'll go.
I
So
love that.
finding the techniques that work for us, and of course I don't think there's anything wrong to use something outside of ourselves to regulate, whether it is pot, whether it's alcohol, whether it's food, whether it's Netflix, whether it's TikTok or whatever. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. I like that, where you're just like, what do you need right now? Like that, I think that's beautiful. I think that's I think I'm gonna start trying to do that, because it is fear. My fears come from somewhere like deep within that kid in me. When I was a kid and I didn't want to go to softball practice or something like that, and I was like kind of throwing a little bit of a tantrum. And like, sure, like kids throwing a tantrum, like I don't have kids. I don't know what that's like being an adult trying to calm a kid down, but it was never, I was never asked like, what are you scared of? What don't you like about it? What do you need right now? It was just like, shut up and do it. Stop being so ungrateful. I don't fault my parents for any of that, because again, I was very mentally ill and obviously undiagnosed in the late 90s, early 2000s. I don't fault my parents for any of that, but it's just like learning learning how to do it for myself, learning how to talk to myself like, hey, there's a little kid inside of me that's freaked the fuck out right now. What does that kid need? Maybe that kid needs a fucking snack. Maybe that kid needs a little nap, just a little distraction. Like, let's watch a cartoon. It doesn't have to be
Mm-hmm.
this big huge thing. It's just like the kid inside me just needs a little reset. Like, it doesn't have to be
Mm-hmm.
anything crazy.
It's like the typical thing, right? Like you see a kid fall down, scrape their knee maybe, and they look over at mom, and if mom is calm or mom is freaked out, it might, or they might cry, and often what they need is they need a kiss on their forehead from their mom and then they're fine. They get up and they move on.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're really hurt, but often they just need a moment of love to move on. And I found that with the part of me that freaks out, I found that to be true for me. The part of me that's freaking out just needs a little bit of my love, like a kiss on the forehead, and then we're good. And then big me can move on. So these are like this. I love this conversation. I had no idea we were going to go
I
here.
didn't
And
either, honestly. Like, we kind of, it wasn't like a hard left turn. This is because this is where it comes from. This is where like the need to use substances comes from. Is like, for me anyway. I don't know about anyone else. It comes from some kind of childhood trauma.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So You have decided to speak publicly about your experiences with mental health, with leaving AA. I'm just like what I see from you today. And I'm wondering what has motivated you and helped you have the courage to be so transparent. It's such a treat to witness you, by the way.
Thank you. I appreciate that. What's motivated me to do this is trying to think of how to phrase this. It taught me some things. I could have learned them elsewhere, but one of the things AA taught me is like share your experience because somebody out there is going to relate to you. And even if nobody in the known universe relates to you, like I'm speaking my truth. And so I'm helping myself. I don't know that there's somebody else out there with my same exact story, but it's like I know there are people out there in AA who don't want to be there that need to hear us talk about like, hey, it's
Mm.
okay to leave. You know, doing that little check-in like, hey, what do you need? You don't need this. It's okay to need something else. I didn't have the words for this. I didn't have the resources to find things like this when I was brought to AA. It is kind of like healing that 22-year-old version of myself where what did that person need? That person didn't need AA shoved down their throat. It's funny
Mm.
actually. I'm glad you asked me that because I've made some videos on my personal TikTok of just like talking about AA and how I feel about it now. I've made this decision, which I need to keep grounding myself with this, is like, I'm talking about this to like give that 22-year-old person in detox for the first time what they needed, what they didn't get.
Mm.
Because again, I don't know, but it's safe to guess there are other people in those shoes too, that it's like you're gonna be okay. It's not the end of the world. And if you don't like this thing, you don't have to do it. Period.
Totally.
I laugh instead instead of taking deep breaths. I have to laugh because again, feeling my feelings is really fucking scary. And so if I just do a little giggle and have to feel them, but I'm probably gonna do like a little a grounding breath thing whenever we hop off here because this was a lot, and I'm really glad we did this.
Yeah. I don't even do it intentionally. It's just what happens with my body now. I
Mm-hmm.
used to be a laugher with emotions too, and a lot of people that I talk to are. They laugh like when they start crying, they start laughing, and I think it's super common to have that reaction. For sure it was mine, so
Mm-hmm.
I totally relate to that. I think now it's just like I was just imagining, like in my mind, I guess, like you telling that to your 22-year-old, but then also your younger self. But then also, if I had heard that, like when I was approaching rehab or struggling with alcohol, how I would have felt. And that's why it was like oh, that would have been so relieving. Like that was like me feeling like if I had heard that message, because it's very powerful, right? You don't have to do something that feels wrong. You don't have to go to a cult religion. You can leave. Like, you don't have to listen to what other people say. You can trust yourself. There are other ways. Go deeper and find them. Ask somebody who is more mentally clear to help you find them if you can't. When I was getting sober, I wasn't mentally clear. I could not have done a deep dive. But in 2009, we weren't really doing rabbit hole deep dives like
Yeah.
we are now. It wasn't, there was less information online. There was less people on YouTube. Nobody was talking about addiction very openly. Nobody was talking about mental health and anxiety. It was the dark ages. But still there would have been ways to go deeper. And so I think that's really powerful to like to be like be a voice for like what you needed when you were approaching the harm reduction or sobriety path in the first place.
Well, the internet is much different now than 2009, but even you think about it, like smart recovery and rational recovery, if I remember correctly, have been around since the 90s.
94, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, which is I was born in 94, which is crazy, but little things like that. I'm trying to give that version of myself what I would have appreciated at the time.
What made you pick Ebby Thatcher as your handle?
For Ebby Thatcher on Instagram, it's ebby.thatcher.1896. That's I always forget the number. Yeah, 1896. I could talk about Ebby Thatcher for a really long time, but Ebby Thatcher was the one who, if we're just looking at it from the big book standpoint, he's the one who came to Bill Wilson and was like, I'm sober. I don't drink anymore. And Bill's like, oh, what's this guy on about? And he's like, well, I found God. And Bill Wilson's like, oh, he's used to be an alcoholic crackpot. Now he's a little cracked about religion. Um, But if you do, and that's the only time Ebby Thatcher is mentioned in the big book, but if you, just read I just read the Wikipedia page, and it's like Ebby Thatcher did not stay sober. Like, he was in and out for his whole life, and he died sober because he died in like an institution. And not to get all like mushy gushy about it, but it's like I'll relate to Ebby Thatcher's story because he was never presented a different option. Because I mean, there wasn't a
Mm.
different option at the time, but it's like that guy struggled. That guy went through a lot of pain, and he. I don't know if this is super goofy, but it's like I want to do Ebby Thatcher some justice by talking about this. Be like,
Mm.
hey, Ebby, like, the Oxford group was a cult, AA's a cult, Bill Wilson's like, he's whatever in my opinion, and like you don't have to like beat yourself up because you have a drinking problem. Like, yeah. Anyway, yeah, Ebby Thatcher's a really interesting character to me. One of the things I've loved doing since leaving AA is reading about AA's history from anywhere other than the big book. That's been really cool.
Is there like a book or a resource that comes to mind?
Honestly, just Wikipedia. Like, if you just start at Wikipedia and read Bill Wilson's Wikipedia article, it's like, nah, he dropped acid and did seances. Like that guy. Um, Ebby Thatcher's Wikipedia. All of the Facebook groups have been super helpful. Like I said, Burn the Stigma was one of the first ones that I found that spoke about the things that I needed to hear at the time. Um, After Burn the Stigma, it was reading about cults, not even in the context of AA, but just like reading about people's cultic experiences. Emma's group thinking podcast, Quackaholics Anonymous, Monica Richards' 13th Step, which is like Orange Papers, which I haven't read. I need to read. There's a lot of resources on the Orange Papers website.
Ooh, Abby's in there.
Okay. Hey, I know what I'm doing the rest of the day. Oh my
Oh, I
goodness.
bet that was your little hook into the
Yeah,
rabbit
yeah,
hole.
here we go.
Abby.
Yeah. All
Yeah.
right.
Just search for Abby in there.
Yeah. And
I learned about Abby in there.
yeah, there are a lot more resources out there than, like you said, in 2009 the internet was a little bit more limited, and I really hope that this kind of shift keeps happening where it's like we have more access to information. Let's keep putting the information out there for the people who need it, the people who want it. Let's make it more accessible, and more people be able to find this stuff instead of just, having AA shoved down their throat.
Yes. If you could wave a magic wand and instantaneously shift society or culture, the mainstream narrative on addiction recovery, what would it be?
Everything. If I had to pick one thing, it would just be like not have AA be the gold standard. Like, sure, let's let it be an option if you're religious, if you believe in God. Like, sure, let's give that option to people. But like, in treatment centers, let's give people treatment. Let's use evidence-based modalities. Let's do real therapy. Let's not shove some medicine down your throat, which I have no problem with medication. I take medication, but it's like
Sure.
let's meet people where they're at, actually meet people
Mm.
where they're at, not just like do all this lip service to it. If I could wave a magic wand, I would level the playing field. Cuz right now AA is top dog. I don't know anything about sports. I can't think of a good analogy, but it's like, let's level the playing field and give everybody a fair chance, to give all the solutions a fair chance.
I love that.
Hmm.
That's what I want to. I want AA to have informed consent so that people, just like if someone is going to get, if they have cancer and they're going to go and they're going to get chemotherapy, nobody is really in the delusion that it's going to be all benefits, right? People know that the treatment comes with harm, but ideally the benefits of the treatment way outweigh the harms, so you do them anyways. I want that to be mainstream with AA. The harms are known up front, and if you choose it because the benefit for you in your circumstance, in your decision, it outweighs the harms of the treatment. But the fact that the harms of the treatment are hidden still from mainstream, and that I'd say the majority of the propaganda or the majority of what I hear talked about in movies, TV shows, whatever, about getting sober is AA propaganda, essentially. It's not introducing all the ways. It's not even saying that there's harm in the 12-step way. It's still that AA is the way, essentially. There's a lot of options. There's a lot of roads. There's many of them. Figure out, try different ones, or which one suits you, or work it out with your medical professional. And some of them do come with harms, and here's the harms. I'm on the same page with you, Ebby.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's give Ebby a shot.
Sobriety bestie and Ebby Thatcher for your listening pleasure. Informed consent really needs to be a thing in recovery, in addiction treatment, as much as it is with cancer, diabetes, surgery, whatever, health, physical health things. Yeah.
They always tell you the percentage that you might not make it through the surgery alive. Like, can we just, and then you get to choose, do you want this? But for some reason, we don't do that with addiction. But it's bananas.
It is.
There's a 95% chance you're going to fail with this, $40,000, $80,000 rehab center. Nobody tells you that.
Nope. And if you hear that statistic, I can't even, I don't even know how to start with, the way they manipulated statistics when I was in rehab. But it's if you say, oh, it's a 95% failure rate, they're like, those aren't real statistics. Those are people who just don't like AA, just talking shit about it. I'm like, okay, guy.
Yeah, totally. My background is actually statistics. And so that's my education.
I think you would really like the Sober Truth because there's at least one, maybe two chapters that really dive into the research and the statistics behind it. And if you've got I'm terrible at math, but if you've got a background in it, I think you would really enjoy getting a little bit more details about what do the studies actually say. Yeah. Spoiler alert, cool. They say AA doesn't work.
Well, spontaneous recovery is just as effective as AA supposedly is.
Yeah.
And I think it works if you work it is super harmful because then you're telling somebody who it's not working for that they're the problem instead of if it doesn't work, try something else. Because you got this one idea they tell you, if you keep trying the same thing and expecting a different result, that's insanity. And then over here, it works if you work it. So if it's not working and you're working it, work more of the thing that's not working. Yeah. Maybe you're constitutionally incapable of being honest with yourself.
Mentally defective, but there's a chance for you if you can be honest. What is that? What is that nonsense?
So we explored what you would tell yourself when you were 22 and first approaching sobriety or harm reduction. I think it'd be cool to close on if you could go back and tell yourself when you were questioning AA or thinking about leaving AA, what would you go back and tell that version of yourself?
You're not going to die. Spoiler alert, you're not going to die. The world's going to keep turning and you're going to be here. As someone who struggled with suicidal ideation for over half my life, that's a whole can of worms. But when I was leaving AA, I wanted to live and I was so scared that the first time I used cannabis, I was like, I'm rolling the dice and it could end really bad. And so if I were telling that person who was questioning and starting to move away, it was you're not going to die. Keep doing it. Keep moving in the direction you need to move in.
That's really powerful.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah.
That's going to make me cry. That's what I needed to hear too.
Because that's the thing is that's what I would tell somebody else leaving AAs. You're not going to die if you leave this. That's not how it works. Okay. Yeah.
That was my biggest fear was that I was going to die. And it took me months of therapy to remove that. Now I know it's called phobia indoctrination where a cult or a high control group will convince you that to leave the group is to die. But that was very real for me. And it took a while to remove it.
Yeah.
And here we are. We're alive.
Yeah, we're still doing it. We're deprogramming. We're dissenting. It feels really good. It's very cathartic. Yeah.
Ebby in the motherfucking house.
Yeah, I'm excited to read the orange papers now. I'm definitely going to do that today.
Yeah. Well, maybe after you deep dive orange papers, we can have another chat about all the Ebby things you never knew but needed to know to deprogram and get AA out of your head.
I'm so here for that. 100%.
All right, Sam, it was so great to have you on today. Is there anything else you didn't say before we wrap this up?
Um, I just want to reiterate, like, you're not going to die if you leave AA.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Well, I'm really curious for anybody who's watching this or listening, what's come up for you? What did you think? What were your epiphanies? What's going on in your mind right now? How do you feel? What is up out there? Let us know in the comments what you're vibing. As always, like, I'm just one perspective, and Sam Ebby is just another perspective as well. And for me, it's even more interesting to read all the comments below, because that's where, for me, the critical thinking awakens when I understand what's happening in all the minds, certainly not just mine. And so I'm definitely interested to hear what you think. I learned so much from the comments, honestly. Sam, like, I'm like, oh,
I don't often read the comments because it can get a little dicey. People can get really
oh,
heated
oh
in the
yeah,
comments.
oh yeah,
But yeah,
especially when they're about you. I'm like, whoa,
yeah, that
wow, okay,
comment on stuff.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
and you're in a spiritual program. You know what I'm convinced of at this point is because AA has us, if you're doing it right, right? Then you're repressing your anger and your resentments, kind of, or you're trying to get rid of them, like they're like, like the plague or whatever. And so I feel like that gets projected out onto, I saw this in a documentary recently, where when you get indoctrinated into a cult, you repress often you're repressing your anger so that you could be in the group think, which is that we're in this utopia, essentially, like in our group, in our closed system. And then your anger gets darted outwards at anybody who opposes the system. So that's where it gets like sideways out. And so, yeah,
So,
I see that on the comments. I'm like, oh, here we go.
yep, checks out the culty commenters.
I wouldn't say the comments are necessarily a safe space, but I do use them to awaken more critical thinking. Thank you so much for being on the show today, Sam/Ebby Thatcher. Ebby Thatcher's Instagram will be linked below if you want to follow for all the Ebby things. Any other Ebby lovers out there, let us know below if you also are an Ebby vibe, meaning AA didn't work for you and you needed something else. I think that's really what I heard with
Yeah,
the Ebby vibes is
absolutely.
the cult religion wasn't the ultimate solution. Maybe it worked for 6 months, but it's not actually it. So yes, can't wait to hear from you in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.
Bye.